Well, on the subject of quarterbacks, do you want to hit some rapid fire?
Is it time for rapid? We have been talking for 45 minutes about this, and I think we could keep going if we had to, without much of a problem. Because this is a very interesting topic, Sean, and you get people like Scott that are very anti what Notre Dame is doing recruiting, even though the numbers are there and says otherwise. They pinpoint on one specific area or one specific recruit, and then nothing else matters. You know what I mean? Like the offensive class that they're bringing in 24 could average 45 points a game, but it doesn't matter because they brought in a backup safety. Like it's the whole class, man. It's not just one kid you got to focus on.
Scott, you finished strong.
Finish strong, and I will give him credit. He's going to get a clap from me.
Yep. Well done. Well done. At the end. Fill in the blank. CJ Carr's Elite 11 weekend makes you feel blank.
Makes me feel I don't put a whole lot of stock in the Elite 11. I just don't.
Hold it.
What?
You're the guy who was asking me last week if CJ Carr wins the Elite 11.
Uh-oh.
Remember? You remember that
What
whole
did I say?
conversation?
I don't remember.
I wish that I had it sitting here right now. You were the guy because we were talking about is he going to be the starter next year? Do you start? If
he wins it, then he's got a chance to be whatever. Is that what I said?
If he wins it, basically how confident in him being the starting, that he could be the starting quarterback next season. But you don't put any stock in the Elite 11
well,
now.
Here's the thing. I should have never said that, first of all. But if I did, I'll own it. I don't remember saying it, but I believe you. I don't remember what I had for breakfast, so there's that. But the Elite 11 it's a cool event, and I get the prestige of being invited to it and the prestige of winning the regional and going on to the national version and all of that. At the end of the day, and I do remember saying something along these lines at one point or another, at the end of the day, it's guys in shorts and T-shirts throwing the ball around with no offensive line or defensive line. That part, for me, doesn't tell the whole tale. Now, you're also competing against arguably the best of the best. And so how you fare in the same things that they're doing is again, it is a measurable. It is something that you can take into account, right? I believe he ended up in the top half, third, fourth, fifth, something along those lines.
Like, depending on whose evaluation you look at, he's like 3, 4, 5-ish, right around there.
Pretty much what I anticipated, because he doesn't have the hype of some of these other guys that are going into it, and I know that plays a role in it. Okay. I mean, it is what it is. Again, it's immeasurable. It's not the be all end all. So it's cool.
And USMA, Drew Pine looked awesome at the Elite 11.
Well,
so if
there you go.
If that's going to tell you anything, I think the biggest takeaway, again, we weren't there, so we didn't get to, see him in action. But again, like when you look at all these different evaluators were there, the things that stood out about Carr, the mechanics. They really liked his mechanics. He wasn't necessarily spectacular day one. They felt like, he redeemed himself day two, really consistent with his throws, the mechanics that he has, and, like they weren't talking about, like a bomber arm or anything, but at the same time, a guy who can stretch it downfield a little bit, all the things you want to hear. And when you're looking at, as you were saying, comparing him against his peers, guys in the same class, how much it matters? Probably not much. But I think the biggest takeaway is he wasn't a guy who like all of a sudden like, oh, he went to the Elite 11 and he's sitting at the bottom, of any of these evaluations. He's in the, like the upper fourth of this thing, upper third, upper fourth. And it sounded like it was just, really solid, but just like you were talking about, what's ultimately going to matter is how he's able to perform when things are live, when he gets here. But I think it's still something that we can feel good about with him. He went to, it's like the Top Gun camp of, college football quarterbacks. The best of the best were there, and he performed, right up there with the top of them.
He didn't go below the hard deck, so that's always a bonus.
That's right. Mr. 2.0, Also, true or false, since Dane Christ. So I think, are we talking about the generational argument? Like, is that, what that goes back to? Since
Or
Dane Christ?
yeah.
Like, I mean, again, you can talk about what their ratings are coming out of high school, but you still have to, you have to base it on how they perform. Dane was a solid college quarterback, but obviously did not perform like an elite college quarterback once he got here.
Right. And then he went to your alma mater and didn't do much better. So
right. Exactly. And that's where you would have expected him, like if it was going to happen,
sure,
he would have had a better chance there. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Marcus Freeman says Irish running back Jadarian Price is back to 100%.
It is awesome. I took a sigh of relief when I read that, because that's one of the biggest question marks going into this year with Logan Diggs deciding that it was finally time for him to go back home, which is fine. I respect that. What was the depth chart going to look like? And Notre Dame at first wasn't 100% sure. That's why they went out and got the kid from Penn State to bolster up the depth chart. If he is healthy, based on what we know about a year ago and what he was doing, I mean, he was slated to be the starter over Estime and Diggs, right? I mean, that was the projection. That's what was happening. Right. And so if he can come back to that, if that's what Marcus Freeman means by 100%, that he's back to the way he was, that running back room just got a heck of a lot better. A heck of a lot better.
It's pretty exciting is what it is.
Yeah, it is.
Like, because of what you just said. Like, he was like, I still think Audric Estime would have been part of it just because of, the power and just the specific skill set that he has. I mean, Logan Diggs likely would have been as well, but I think the question would have been like how those reps were split, probably even more than Estime's last year. And now you've got, the question is still going to be, like, you can say he's 100%. Does he have that true breakaway type speed still coming back from the Achilles? That's, again, something that we won't see until we get to see him put the foot on the pedal. But we did get to start, see him start running a little bit at the end of spring practice, and you didn't see any kind of limp out there at all. Again, was it 100%? No, but we saw him kind of, running the end zone and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to see this, because this is a guy who can be a total game changer type guy in that backfield. And again, when you combine him with everything else that they're going to have offensively, I just think it's really exciting to think about what this offense can be this year.
No doubt. When I read that, I was like, oh, I don't know who heard him say that, but that's exciting. I was very excited about that.
Yep. So Nicole Auerbach wrote a piece in The Athletic that says the college football playoff needs to reward the teams that play tougher non-conference schedules. I think most people, probably pretty, much agree with that. But she goes on to say the leagues that play 9-game conference schedules should be rewarded over the conferences that opt to stay at 8 games. This is an obvious, directed at the SEC.
Of course it is.
Staying with 8 games. Here are 2 conference schedules of 2 what I would call elite teams. One plays an 8-game schedule, one plays a 9-game schedule. Here's Alabama's 8-game SEC slate for 2024. At home, Georgia, Auburn, Missouri, South Carolina. On the road, LSU, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Vanderbilt. That's an 8-team schedule right there, 8-game schedule. Here's Ohio State's 9-game schedule for the same season, 2024. At home, Illinois, Iowa, Northwestern, Michigan, Rutgers. On the road, Michigan State, Minnesota, Penn State, UCLA. So, Vince, whose schedule would you rather have, the 8-game Alabama or the 9-game Ohio State conference slate?
Well, that's a no-brainer. I would take the Big Ten schedule over the SEC schedule all day long and twice on Sunday. I mean, there's no way I would take the SEC schedule over a Big Ten. I mean, regardless of whether it's 8 or 9, there's just no way. And so that part of the argument that she makes, I do not agree with, because not all conferences are created equal. So I don't agree with the 8 versus the 9-game schedule and all that stuff. And, people should be punished or rewarded or whatever. I don't agree with that, because I'll I just don't. Okay. Playing Rutgers or whatever, that doesn't increase your strength of schedule. Now, the other part of what she says, I think actually holds a lot of weight. The non-conference schedule should somehow be rated and help you if you're willing to play better out of conference schedule. The SEC generally plays terrible out of conference games. 2 of them are usually 1AA, if I'm not mistaken. They're terrible.
Right. And that's what, basically half the SEC in early November has their bye weeks by playing, FCS opponents, whoever they happen to be. Take your pick of, whatever, chucker that they're going to roll into town that week. And I think that's what most people have the issue with. It's hard, sitting, and again, like Notre Dame is not in a conference. They've always put together their own schedule. It's hard to sit here and take shots at it now, though, because they're putting Tennessee State on the schedule this year.
That's true. It weakens the argument. And I'm not even approaching it from a Notre Dame standpoint, because Notre Dame's not in a conference. And, if you
but you can see why SEC coaches voted the way they did.
Absolutely.
To keep it at 8 teams for next year. When you look at that, and like Jesse and I were like, we went through Jesse, like the Texas and Oklahoma, one of them's going to play Alabama in year 1. The other's going to play Georgia in year 1. Then they'll probably, like flip flop the next year. They'll play a home and home, and then they'll, get the other one. It really is, especially when you're adding Texas and Oklahoma to this thing, it ups the degree of difficulty, because again, we were just talking about blue chip ratio to start things off. Alabama, Georgia, Texas, Oklahoma, Auburn, they're all sitting there. I think it was like 13 or no, 11 of the top 15 were a combined Big Ten, or SEC, most of them coming from the SEC. So it's like, as a coach in the SEC, why would you want to play a 9-game schedule?
So let me ask you this, Sean. Let's put a Notre Dame spin on it. Okay. Notre Dame basically plays 9 conference games a year. Okay. And here's what I determine as a conference game.
And I see where you're going.
It's the ACC schedule, obviously, right?
5
plus Navy, USC, and Stanford.
Right.
I mean, those are the teams they play every year, right? The ACC plus those teams, right? So they have 3 non-conference games. So Notre Dame's 3 non-conference games this year, I'm using air quotes, Tennessee State, Central Michigan, and Ohio State.
Right.
If Notre Dame was a Big Ten team, for example, and those were your 3, I know Ohio State's in the Big Ten. I get that. I'm just saying, if Notre Dame was in a conference and those are your 3 non-conference games, how would you rate that non-conference schedule?
Like in comparison to what SEC?
Yeah, in comparison to like a Big Ten team or an SEC team or whatever. Like, how would you say Notre Dame is going about their non-conference schedule this year, having Tennessee State, Ohio State, and Central Michigan as their non-conference?
I mean, it's better than most of these schools that we're talking about. Now LSU is going to play. Was it USC or is it UCLA? That they're going to.
It's UCLA.
UCLA. So like Notre Dame, their scheduling philosophy, the way they have to do it, again, this goes back to the fact that they're not in a conference, so they're always going to try to go out and add an Ohio State, a Texas A&M next year, a Wisconsin a couple of years ago, Alabama in a few years. That's part of their scheduling philosophy to make up for the fact that they're not playing in a conference championship game. They have to at least schedule up, in one of those games. And then you take your Central Michigan and whoever, UNLV last year, Tennessee State this year. So, that's the reason for it, by and large, with the exception of some of these schools that Notre Dame is playing, most of them, Notre Dame definitely takes a higher degree of difficulty by going out and scheduling those kind of premier opponents. Agreed. In addition to a couple of cream puffs to come along with them.
I would have had a much stronger argument had Tennessee State not ended up on the schedule, obviously. that game that one's hard to defend for obvious reasons. Normally, in every other year besides this year coming up, they've played obviously 3 either Power 5 or Group of 5 teams in their quote unquote non-conference schedule, right?
Right.
And
well, just to clarify again, John is saying Notre Dame isn't in a conference, and Vince said that. He's saying that what Notre Dame plays essentially its equivalent of a conference schedule, because they play the ACC schools every year, they play USC every year, they play Navy every year, they play Stanford every year. So
that's their base
schedule.
It's
not a conference. Yeah, it's like it's kind of their equivalent of a conference schedule, because they know going into every season that they're going to play those games.
Correct. When Jack Swarbrick, or soon to be Pete Bavacqua, goes out to make the schedule for Notre Dame, he's only having to schedule 3 games a year, right? Because 9 games are already set in stone. You've got the ACC schedule plus the 3 teams that you mentioned, USC, Stanford, and Navy. You only have to go out and find 3 games. It's the same thing that a conference, a team in a conference has to do. They have to just go out and schedule a non-conference schedule, 3 games usually, or 4 if you're in the Big Ten. That's all they got to do. Normally, before Tennessee State came along, Notre Dame had an argument that they had the best non-conference schedule out there, or one of them, year in and year out. They can still make the argument that it's not a cream puff out of conference schedule, and they could, they should get credit for doing that, in my opinion.
Right. Chi-Town was talking about Ole Miss's schedule that says they play Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Arkansas, and Texas A&M this season.
I mean, that's tough.
Maybe they should move to the Big 12. Big 12's looking for new teams.
Seriously. But that's their conference schedule, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're in the SEC, man. Sorry.
Yeah. Exactly. Not much you can do about that.
Right.
Fill in the blank. It's blank that former Cardinals infielder and 2011 World Series hero David Freese declined an invitation to join the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame after fans voted him in.
There has to be a reason why, and I don't know what it is.
He wrote this long letter, and it really doesn't say why. Yeah.
Man, he must have had a bad divorce coming out of the organization or something.
It's just, the gist seems to be like he doesn't feel like he deserves to be there for some reason.
Really?
Which I don't get. Like, you helped the team win a World Series. The team was down to its final strike. And if not for you, the Texas Rangers would have won the World Series instead of the St. Louis Cardinals.
I mean, it's a great honor to be voted into the Hall of Fame of the team that you played for. I don't understand why you would shirk that honor. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't know if he's in counseling and they counseled him not to do it. It doesn't make any sense to me why he wouldn't do that. It's baffling to me. That's what I'm using to fill in the blank. It's baffling that he would refuse that honor. Can you hear me? Well, we lost Sean for a moment. I don't know if it was me or if it was him. I don't know. Can you guys let me know if you can hear me? Hopefully you can. But I could not hear Sean, and I don't know if anybody else could either. So it looks like he's going to do the get out and get back in situation. And we will continue with rapid fire. But I don't know why. I mean, I guess I just don't understand. Mr. 2.0 says, I'm a Cardinal fan, and for a regional Hall of Fame, he definitely deserves it. And John says he's being disrespectful to the fans. I definitely don't disagree with that. Fans voted you in. You should respect that and take it for what it's worth and take it and go. I don't understand why he wouldn't do that. I don't know. DJ Armageddon, you and I are about on the same wavelength here. He says he obviously had a falling out with the organization at some point. That's what I felt like too. Like maybe he didn't have a good leaving situation or whatever. Felt like there must have been a falling out. I don't know, but it just seems odd to me that he would do that. I don't know. It just
can you hear me? Okay,
I can hear you perfectly.
All right. these newfangled headphones my son bought me
man.
appear to be the culprit of this whole
Oh.
thing. So, yeah, there's been nothing reported about a falling out with the organization. It doesn't seem to be that. It's like he feels like apparently he doesn't deserve to be there for some reason. You know, he grew up in St. Louis. He was a hometown boy, helped the hometown team win.
Yeah.
It is just very odd, I think, to see a guy, you know, have the kind of, you know, it was not a Hall of Fame, you know, it was not a Major League Baseball Hall of Fame career, but I think he's definitely worthy of being in the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame.
He was important to that organization. You know, like they don't win a World Series without him. Period.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's very odd.
Yeah,
very odd. So umpires at the College World Series have been issuing unsportsmanlike, sportsmanship warnings to players. One happened last night when a Florida batter was hit by a pitch. He glared at the pitcher who hit him. Do you buy or sell sportsmanship warnings?
It's ridiculous. I don't like it. I realize this is collegiate athletics. It's supposed to be learning and all. Well, okay, fine. I wouldn't support it at the high school level, and I wouldn't support it at the college level. I'm sorry. If you're going to be disrespectful and you do something that's disrespectful to the game, then you get thrown out of the game. And that's how it works in baseball. It feels like a slap on the wrist. Oh, don't do that now. Don't you glare at the pitcher. That's not okay. Like that. Come on, man. Like, no, I don't like it. I'm sorry. It feels very YMCA-ish to me.
See, like, do you get these in college basketball?
Right.
No.
Thank you.
Do you get these in football? No. But for some reason in baseball, we need this. And you know, again, I was watching the game when this happened. The guy got hit by a pitch. It was the second sportsmanship warning they had issued. And there was one earlier where, like a pitcher, got excited because he, struck somebody out or got it out. And so he said some stuff and they gave him a warning. Like, what are we doing here? We're legislating, we're legislating rules to take emotion out of these games. I don't get it. This just, it seems very high school or little league to me to be doing this.
Even more little league than high school, right?
These are adult. Yeah. Like these are adult men who are playing these games. They're all in their, like late teens, early 20s. Everyone wants to hold them to different standards when they do, different stuff off the field. And we don't want them to get excited because they got a big out or, these are the biggest games of their careers. I think it's idiotic to me. I
have no problem with the home plate umpire or an umpire or whatever, like warning a bench if they're chirping too much in a negative way. That's part of the game. You can warn them for that, and then you throw them out if they continue to do it or whatever. There are warnings already built into baseball. You can warn them for stuff. If there's too many hit by pitches, you warn the pitcher, you warn the bench, that kind of a thing. That's a thing, and I'm okay with that. But the whole calling it a sportsmanship warning, like, are they not supposed to celebrate when they hit a home run in the college freaking World Series?
Well, there's another thing. There was a game over the weekend, again, at the College World Series. Guy hits a home run. It wasn't out of the park yet. It was like a towering shot to right field. And he kind of stood there for a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
And, was watching,
it.
Where it was going to go.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
And did you see the umpire told
goes,
him run?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's it your business if he's running?
You know what? I will say I don't mind.
But you're the umpire. There's no rule. There's no rule against the guy standing and admiring whatever he does. I agree. If the coach wants to tell him to run, that's one thing. The umpire needs to sit there, shut up, call balls and strikes and outs, and that is it. That is it.
I honestly didn't have a problem with somebody. Hey, get going. Like I don't. But don't stop the game and give him a warning. Like I don't have a problem with him being like, you know what, get the stink out of here or whatever. Sorry, excuse me. Get out of here. Go do your thing. Start running.
Like, get us a sportsmanship warning.
Yeah, I know, right? My bad. But I didn't see that as much of a deal. But like, don't stop the game and give him a sportsmanship warning for watching his baseball fly through the air. Like that would be over the line for me. But I don't have a problem with just get go, because in my opinion, the umpire is trying to prevent an issue down the road of retaliation. because if I'm the pitcher and I see him doing that, I'm going to bean him next time he comes up because that's how baseball works.
Yeah, but then you're going to get a sportsmanship warning, and then you're going to get kicked out.
Right.
See, and that's once you get one of these warnings, then the next time something happens, that's, like ejection, basically.
Right.
So,
right.
I think it's a little bit, too far. Let them,
Right.
As I've always said before, coach your own team. And as long as you're not directing whatever at somebody on the other team, it's all fair game. As long as I'm not standing there, yelling or, whatever, if I'm getting excited, if I'm not, because sometimes it turns into, like barking at the other dugout and all that kind of stuff. I agree with what you're saying. Like if you're directing stuff, like at from your dugout at the other team and it's crossing lines, I've got no problem with that.
And honestly, if I was the catcher in that particular instance where the kid was admiring his home run, I'd have told him to run. Like, get moving. That's what I would have done personally. But like, get moving. If you don't want to wear the next one, be on your way, young man.
Right. But if I'm on the other, if I'm the catcher on the other team, that's one thing. But if I'm the umpire,
I know.
What is it my business? What is it your business if the guy is standing and admiring his shot? If you're the
trying to be a mediator, he's trying to prevent further issues.
Trying to be crotchety old man is what he's trying to be. Got enough of them on this show. Like,
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm not talking about listeners.
Yeah, I know you're not. I know you're not.
just so the listeners know. Oh yeah, Chi-Town said must have played at a different area because in the Little League, if someone drilled your guy, then he was going to get in on the next at bat. Yeah, it's like that is way legislated out now. Like when you're talking about youth and high school sports, man, you start beaning guys, you're going to get run really quick.
I never instructed a player to hit another guy. I never had to.
Yeah. Me either. Yeah. Just to clarify.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it was going to happen, it happened. And I didn't have to say do or do not. You know what I mean? So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And we had, guys that we felt on our team were being thrown at, a couple times.
Oh, sure.
And we still didn't, retaliate.
Right.
In that way.
Unfortunately, they don't let you hit the opposing manager, which there were times where
and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. The guy who took over for you wouldn't mind doing that a couple times. Saying.
Let's go ahead and wrap things up tonight. Vince, enjoyed it as always. We got a little spirited. We had a little Scott energy there at the end, so that's always good.
Yeah,
hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe, rate, review. We will be back tomorrow with another edition of IB Nation Sports. I think I got my blood flowing here at the end. IB Nation Sports Talk. We'll talk to you tomorrow.